You're making one of the biggest financial decisions of your life, and you have no idea if you're making the right call. Rent or buy? It's the question that keeps you up at night. You scroll through apartment listings at midnight. You drive past houses on the weekend and imagine yourself there. But then doubt creeps in. What if buying locks you into something you can't escape? What if renting means you're throwing money away forever? The uncertainty is exhausting, and honestly, you're not alone. Millions of people face this exact same decision every single year, and most of them feel just as confused as you do right now. Here's the thing though, this decision doesn't have to be this complicated. The math isn't some mysterious puzzle that only financial experts can solve. It's actually pretty straightforward once you see it laid out clearly. That's exactly what we're doing in this video. We're following two people who earn the exact same salary. They live in the same city, they have the same lifestyle, they want the same things. The only difference? One of them decides to rent, and the other decides to buy. We're going to track every single dollar they spend over the next several years and show you exactly where that money goes. You're going to see their housing costs broken down month by month. You'll watch their equity grow or their savings deplete. You'll understand the hidden expenses nobody talks about. And most importantly, you're going to see which path actually makes more financial sense, and maybe even more surprising, which one feels right for their actual life. If this is clicking for you already, drop a like, because we're about to make this so much clearer than you probably expected. By the time you finish watching, you won't have to guess anymore. You won't have to rely on what your friends told you or what some random article said online. You'll have the actual numbers right in front of you. You'll see the real trade-offs, and you'll understand your own situation so much better that making this decision will feel calm and confident instead of stressful and uncertain. Let me introduce you to our two characters. Meet Alex. Alex makes $85,000 a year. Stable job, good benefits, decent savings account. Alex has been thinking about making a move for months now. The current apartment is fine, but it doesn't feel like home anymore. There's no space to grow, no room for personal projects. And honestly, Alex is tired of paying rent to a landlord who doesn't care about the place. So Alex starts looking at houses. They find something that feels right. A modest home in a reasonable neighborhood. Nothing fancy, but it's got potential. Alex can see themselves there. Meanwhile, meet Jordan. Jordan also makes $85,000 a year. Same paycheck, same benefits, same savings. Jordan faces the exact same housing decision. Should I rent or should I buy? But Jordan's instinct is different. Jordan values flexibility. Doesn't want to be tied down to a mortgage for 30 years. Wants to keep options open. Wants to be able to pick up and move if something better comes along. So Jordan decides to look for an apartment. A nice place in a good neighborhood. Nothing too extravagant, but comfortable and well-maintained. Both of them are looking at housing options in the same price range. Both of them have similar down payment savings. Both of them could technically go either direction. So right now, they're at a crossroads. Alex is leaning toward buying. Jordan is leaning toward renting. And honestly, neither of them is totally sure they're making the right choice. They both have doubts. They both have reasons that feel valid. They both have heard convincing arguments from people they trust about why their chosen path is the right one. Sound familiar? This is where most people get stuck. You talk to someone who bought a house, and they tell you it's the best decision they ever made. Then you talk to someone who rents, and they tell you renting gave them the freedom they needed. Everybody's right, and that's what makes it so confusing. So let's do something different. Instead of listening to opinions, let's follow the money. Let's watch what actually happens to their finances over the next 10 years. We're going to see how much Alex pays in mortgage payments, property taxes, insurance, maintenance, and all those surprise expenses that homeowners don't always plan for. We're going to see how much Jordan pays in rent, moving costs, renter's insurance, and all the little expenses that come with apartment living. We're going to track how much equity Alex builds in the house. We're going to track how much savings Jordan can build while not tied to a mortgage. We're going to show you the total cost of ownership versus the total cost of renting. Side by side, month by month. No guessing, no assumptions, just the actual math. Here's what makes this really valuable. The answer might surprise you. You might think buying is always the better investment, or you might assume renting is always throwing money away. But the reality is more nuanced than that. And that nuance is exactly what you need to understand to make the right decision for yourself. In the next section, we're going to reveal where all the money actually goes. You're going to see the breakdown for both Alex and Jordan. You're going to understand which person comes out ahead financially, and maybe more importantly, you're going to understand why. You'll see the costs you expected and the costs that hide in plain sight. You'll understand the real difference between building equity and building freedom, and you'll have all the information you need to make your own decision with confidence instead of fear. Let's walk through the actual numbers now, because this is where most people get confused and where the real picture emerges. Over the first 5 years, our renter pays about $1,200 a month. That's $14,400 every single year going directly to a landlord. No equity builds, no ownership accumulates. But here's what people miss. There are no down payments, no closing costs, no property taxes, no homeowner's insurance, no maintenance surprises. The renter's life stays predictable. They write one check and they're done. Our buyer needs to come up with a down payment. Let's say 20% on a $300,000 home. That's $60,000 right out of the gate. Money that doesn't appear in the rent versus buy conversation nearly often enough. Then come the closing costs, another $5,000 to $7,000. Add in property taxes, homeowner's insurance, HOA fees if applicable, and maintenance reserves. By month 1, the buyer's true monthly costs sit somewhere between $2,200 and $2,500. But, and this is crucial, roughly half of that payment is building equity. The principal portion of the mortgage is money going into an asset they own. After 5 years, our buyer has paid down maybe $40,000 of principal on that mortgage. They own real estate. Their renter has nothing but memories and a clean moving record. So who's ahead? In pure monthly cash flow, the renter wins. In net worth, the buyer wins. But it gets more interesting when you factor in time horizon and life stability. If our renter gets a job offer in another city in year 3, they simply give notice and go. The buyer, their closing costs and realtor fees away from breaking even. Real estate transaction costs run about 8 to 10% of the sale price. On a $300,000 home, that's $24,000 to $30,000 just to exit. The buyer needs the market to appreciate, or they need to stay longer than 5 to 7 years just to absorb those costs and come out ahead. Here's where maintenance costs enter the picture too. Home ownership isn't just the mortgage payment. In year 2, the air conditioning unit dies, $7,000. In year 4, the roof needs replacing, $15,000. Renters, that's not their problem. The landlord handles it. These aren't edge cases, they're statistical certainties. Most homeowners reserve about 1% of their home's value per year for maintenance. That's $3,000 annually for a $300,000 home. Over 5 years, that's $15,000 in repairs and upkeep. Our renter never sees those bills. So let's add it up for the first 5 years. Our buyer invested $60,000 in down payment, spent roughly $135,000 in principal and interest, another $5,000 to $7,000 in closing costs, paid about $30,000 in property taxes and insurance combined, and faced $15,000 in maintenance. That's approximately $240,000 to $250,000 total cash outlay. But that buyer now owns an asset worth roughly $330,000, assuming modest appreciation. The net position improves considerably when you factor in that equity. Our renter spent $144,000 in rent. They have nothing to show except a history of on-time payments. In a 5-year snapshot, the buyer has built real wealth, despite higher monthly payments. But zoom out to 10 years, and the picture crystallizes even more. The buyer's mortgage payments haven't increased. They're locked in, while the renter faces rent increases averaging 2 to 3% annually. By year 10, the renter might be paying $1,600 a month. Meanwhile, the buyer's payment is still $2,400. But they're only 6 years away from owning the home free and clear. The buyer is now living in a house worth roughly $375,000, with maybe $150,000 left on the mortgage. The renter has paid $225,000 in cumulative rent, with zero assets to show for it. The math clearly favors the buyer long term. However, and this matters just as much, the buyer had to be able to afford $60,000 up front. They had to be emotionally prepared for unexpected costs. They had to want to stay in one place. They had to believe in the neighborhood enough to commit to a decade. They had to stomach market volatility and the risk that their home appreciates slower than expected. If any of those conditions don't apply, renting isn't a failure, it's the smarter choice. The real insight here is this: renting isn't about losing money. It's about buying flexibility, predictability, and freedom from risk. Buying isn't about greed or status. It's about compounding wealth and refusing to pay someone else's mortgage with your own money. Both paths are legitimate. Both win under the right circumstances. The question isn't which is objectively better. The question is which fits your life, your timeline, and your appetite for risk and commitment. If you're staying put, if you can handle surprises, if you've got the down payment ready, buying builds wealth. If you might move, if you crave simplicity, if you'd rather invest your capital elsewhere, renting sets you free. You now have the framework to decide without the noise. If this breakdown helped you see your housing decision more clearly, I'd genuinely appreciate a like. It helps these videos reach people who need this kind of thinking. Thanks for walking through the numbers with me.